This is the second video of the No One Sleeps series. Since it's a continuation of No One Sleeps Tonight, a lot of the instrumentation is the same. But a lot of the interesting stuff in this track is happening with the composition, so that's what this video will mainly be about. But before I talk about all of that, we gotta go through the origin of this track, which is this. This is something that I wrote way back then, even the dates up here. December 20th, 2018. That was a long time ago. I talked about the details and the origin of this track in the No One Sleeps This Week video, so I don't want to repeat myself, but basically this is the first thing that I ever wrote. And of course, it doesn't sound very good, but I decided to reuse some of the melodies from this track in No One Sleeps This Week. So when we go through that, I'll go back and forth between projects to compare. So here's the project file. It's still a little messy, but I did organize some things. Like up here, I'm using groups now and color coding. This guitar, the guitars are still messy. That does get a little bit better later. Overall, it's a pretty average project with like all the layering going on. I was starting to get a bit better at using FL Studio at the time. So now let's get into the sections. And for this starting section, we're using the exact same synth from No One Sleeps Tonight. And also over here we have drums, bass. The drums are actually different this time. So over here, I'm using Moto Drum. I was looking for something different and better than MT Power Drum Kit, and I wanted to find a plugin that was really versatile that I could use in a lot of different tracks. So I chose this one. However, I think this is the only time that I ever use this plugin, because I would upgrade to the plugins by Get Good Drums. Well, I think it's just referred to as GGD now. So I used, I'll talk about it later when we get to those videos. But for this one, I used Moto Drums, and it also came paired with Moto Bass, and I think I used that for something like Complete Breakfast. But I was mainly just looking for a drum that just sounded a bit better, and this does sound a bit better. However, it's all right. I didn't know that much about drum mixing at the time. So let's go through the sounds that are in here. We pull out a better pattern. So we have kicks, snares, and hats and crashes. I'll get through these patterns a bit later. Now moving on to the bass, it is the same bass, Omni bass as usual. And I'm pretty sure it's the same as No One Sleeps Tonight. So I can be pretty brief with that. Yeah, I'm also using the octave again. I'll play that. So the bass is running into an octave, just like an unregistered firearm. I have this running through my guitar plugin, except everything is off, except the transpose mode is on. I could have probably used something else to bring it up an octave, but I just decided to use this that day. Oh yeah, I think I missed one thing. The drums are routed out individually here, but since a lot of them have some plugins already applied, it looks like there isn't much processing aside from the snare, where we have some basic compression going on. Let me pull that up. There we go. And then we have some reverb, which everything's not set to detach, so I have to, okay, there we go. Okay, back to the bass. Yeah, I'm using, I think this is the same equalizer that I used. And then we also have some multi-band compression going on. So that's the bass and the drums. And then we have the guitars, which are a similar tone, guitar tone. I'll talk about more when we get to that section, but first, here is the intro. So we have 3 synths that I used in No One Sleeps Tonight. One's panned left, one panned center, one's panned right, as usual. And this is what that sounded like. So yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just the synth that I used in No One Sleeps Tonight. And then we have this next section, which brings in the bass, some of the drums here, and the guitar. So here is the guitar isolated. So over here is this mixer channel looks really messy. There's a lot going on. Everything is like connected. There's like guitar everywhere here, and they're all being like sent to this bus. But this start is using archetype Tim Henson as usual. We have the multi-voicer on this time, and running it through this, and some reverb. Edison is how I record things, and I just have that on every track where I record. So back to here with the multi-voicer on, this is what it sounds like. So this is playing a melody that was in the 2018 track. Let me pull it up. I think it is right here. And that is almost the same as what you've heard here. There's also a melody that is being reused, which is back here. I forgot to mention that. And then back here. Oh, almost. The note is slightly different, but it follows like the same idea. So we have bass just simply whole notes outlining the chords, and the drums building up into this section. And we also have the synths, which I decided to not split into 3 tracks and decided to play all of them at once. Here's all the chords that you can see that I outlined. What you see down here is the velocity is set to 0, so you can't hear it. So it's mainly just there so I can see the chord outlines and I can pick what voices that I want to use. So here is this. Wait, there we go. The multi-voicer is also using these chords right here, except the voicing is just a little bit different. Looks like this is moved up an octave, this line here. So one thing that I should probably explain is why this is split and this is not split. One of the reasons is because I want that panning over here in this solo section. It sounds a bit nicer. And since everything's spread out, it's much easier to pick out the different notes. And in this section, when everything is playing at the same time, it's not that big of a difference to have that stereo separation. So I just decided to run it in like mono. So, oh yeah, here's this section. Let me play it. Okay, so down here we have some noise moving into this next section, which I think I also used in some other tracks. Oh, and then we also have this guitar, which is just, let's see. Yeah, it's a reversed guitar with a little bit of velocity automation, so it builds up into this note. So now the next section, which brings back the harpsichord, which is the same harpsichord. It's experimental harpsichord that I used in No One Sleeps Tonight. I don't want to go over through the plugin since it should be the exact same. So this is the main section where everything comes together now. Here it is. So for these synths, I decided to split it. I don't know why I decided to split it. I didn't actually need to do that since these are mainly acting as pads. And you're not really hearing it. Yeah, I muted all of the other lines except this one in the middle. I'll play these synths by themselves. So they're just outlining the chords, not really doing anything fancy. They're just adding extra support in like the mid-range. And then we have the drums here. So these drums, they work for the track, but I don't actually, I mean, they're all right, but that's not how I want them to sound today. Oh, we also have this demo section right here. Hold on, it's muted, so this doesn't actually play, but I think this is just the outline that I wrote. Yes, it is. Oh, that's different. Yeah, so this is probably an early iteration of what this main section was, and I decided to not use it. Let's see this one. Okay, that actually sounds cooler than what I decided to use. Maybe? Okay, this is a possibility. I don't know for sure, since I think this is one of the videos that does not have any documentation. But I think I just didn't want to record it because this was a bit too much for me to record, since I wasn't good at guitar at the time. So I think I decided to stick to something a bit more simple instead of that. Now we have the bass. I actually notated I think, are these dead notes? Yeah, they are dead notes. So this blue that you see are dead notes, and these are the triggers that are activating them. So I'll play through this section. Dead notes just give it extra rhythm. I like how it sounds. And then we have the sound font guitar. So that's doubling up with the bass to make it sound a bit fatter. I think I'm also using a very similar signal chain that I used before in one of the older tracks, so I'm not going to go through that again. And then we have the harpsichord, which is playing this arpeggio. I think these are repeated. Oh no, it's not. It's all different. Okay, I'll just zoom out then and show. So here it is. So these arpeggios are also following the chord progression. I like arpeggiating the harpsichord. It just adds a little twang to it and has some high end, adds some extra high end that balances everything out. And now we have the guitars. So there are three things playing at once. We have this, I think this is the main lead line. So I think that's a single coil neck position or split, some sort of split coil. It's not a full humbucker, or yeah, it's not a full humbucker, I think. Then we have this one. So this sounds like a bridge humbucker. And these are octaves. So one is panned right, one is panned left, and played together they sound like this. And then we have this one down here, which I think is the harmony. Oh, it's not. I don't exactly know what guitar pickup position I decided to use for this. But I decided to layer 3 guitar parts on top of each other. I probably would not do this today. I think I just wanted to make this sound as fat as possible. So here's all of them played at once. It does sound pretty cool and very fat and chorusy. There's probably better ways of achieving this because all of this gets sent into a multi-voicer anyways, so it's gonna sound chorusy. So here it is all routed into the multi-voicer, which is going to play additional notes. So that means there are 15 notes being played in this section because each guitar is routed to the multi-voicer, which has an additional 4 notes being played. And here is what the multi-voicer is playing. So here is everything, all the guitars together. Sounds pretty cool. And then we also have this. This is very faint. It's a sound font. See if you can catch that when I put everything together. Oh, a bit of lag there. This sound font does continue on into the next section being played into the right ear. I think I played everything here at the start, but I'll play all the harmonic stuff at the same time if you want to just hear what that kind of sounds like without the drums, because the drums can like hide some of it. Oh wait, I gotta turn on the levels so that they're correct. Now we move into the next section. So the synths in this section, actually, let me just play it through first. So what's happening here is mainly the harp. The harpsichord is playing the melody and is being supported by the synths and everything else. And then over in this section, I split the harp into a left and a right channel and play them at the same time, and they're harmonizing. What's counterpoint? Again, harmonizing with each other and playing their own lines. Here are the synths by themselves. So if you were paying attention, this is actually the same synth as the intro. And I just thought it was cool that I could just reuse this section again. but instead of acting as the main melody and harmony, it's now acting as a pad, and it's just chords now. It's just showing the harmonic information. There's a demo down here, which is let's see what this is. Yeah, this is just going through what the harpsichord is playing, so I won't go through all of this. But these are the chords that are being played. And let's talk about the harpsichord next. Wait. Oh wait, hold on, that's loud. Okay, so there's a mistake here. I just left a note here. I don't that's not supposed to be there, but it is. I don't know if I just dropped that note just now accidentally when I was like going through this project. I'll have to listen back to see if it is. Then we also have the drums here. This is playing a pretty simple beat. Wait. And that's playing pretty much the same thing through the rest of the way. The bass is also doing something really simple. It's just outlining the chords. And then we also have this sound font guitar playing in the background again on the right side. See if you can pick this out when you listen to it again. So the cool thing about this section right here is there is a lot of lines, melodic lines being played at the same time. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if you want to count bass, that would be 7. But they're doing different things, and I really like counterpoint because when I listen back, I can just latch onto one of these melodies. So, well, since I wrote it, I already know what it sounds like, so I have more fun with it listening back since I can just pick a line, and every single time that I listen back to this section, I can just pick a different one. So that's what I like about this. I just really like counterpoint and all these different things playing together. Oh yeah, we also have this harpsichord, which I did not mention yet. Actually, I'll play all of this, except I'll turn off the drums and bass so you can better hear all of the harmonic elements being played together. So yeah, that just sounds really cool to me, hearing all of those parts play at once. Now we have this next section, which is the buildup. Oh wait, I gotta turn everything up. There we go. So this is, I think, the same buildup that is back here, but it's just played again. So here it is. So it's almost the same, except we have this little harpsichord part being played. So since this is all pretty much the same, I'll just move to the next section, which is the main section again, except it's a little different. So it's missing the synths, and the bass is not as complicated, and the drums are also not playing anything too energetic. So here it is. So this is a lower energy section, mainly because it's going to it's acting as a transition for the next part, which I'll talk about later. The guitars, I'm using a bit lower gain amps. Wait, actually, let's see if it's this different. I'm actually using different, yeah, I'm using a different amp for this lower octave. And there's missing one layer. These are not arpeggiating. These harpsichords are just playing the chords. So something interesting happens here. We're going from a minor key into a major one. And that's kind of the point of this section, because this track is like in harmonic minor, and then I want to move it into a major key. So we have a D minor right here, and then we have an end on a D major. And I think I was just messing around with the chords, and I realized this like progression really wanted to move into major, so that's just what I decided to do. Bass is also doing something pretty simple. The drums, here's what they're doing. Whoop, wrong one. And now we move into this next section. Now this section plus the harpsichord section that comes after is my favorite part of the track. And it's because they contrast with each other so much. So this track was in minor key, and then we move it into major, and then we're going to quickly swap back into minor and go back to originally what we were doing. So this section right here is supposed to sound a bit out of place. So here it is. So if you listen to a decent amount of music, you might notice that this sounds kind of familiar. And that's because this chord progression that you hear is canon in D. I just took the canon in D chord progression because it's... So the idea was I wanted to go into major, but I wanted to sound a little stereotypical, and then I wanted to move far away from it, like very suddenly. So just using a known chord progression that a lot of people know, and then just swapping afterwards. That was kind of what I was trying to go for here. So this is the... Wait, hold on. I gotta turn on the bus. All right. So this is the canon in D chord progression with a few small changes, and I'll point them out. So there are 3 differences, I think, if I remember correctly. This is not in the progression. I'll play it again. So this is a diminished chord, and I just wanted to hint that something is slightly off about this section. And then at the end we have, I think, another... Yeah, there's another diminished chord. And then we have another diminished chord, which is basically like the same thing, since you can just like move these up. Since diminished chords are... I mean, there's technically only 3. Oh, well, that's like theory stuff. But anyways, I wanted the whole idea of this point, I wanted to sound like canon D, except I wanted to like taint it a little bit. And this part right here acts as a transition into the next section afterwards. Before I do that, I want to talk about the guitars. So since this is new, I don't think I've used this signal chain. I'll actually go over here and talk about it. So we're using archetype Petrucci. We're using one of the clean channels. Let's see, what do we have? No compression, none of these. Running through something simple. Q is on, and there's some cuts and boosts happening. And we have some delay and reverb being used. And I think this is the same for both channels. Yep, they are the same thing. So I'll play these guitar parts in isolation. And I don't remember exactly... Oh, wait, I actually wrote it down. Power tap neck humbucker. Okay, so I'm using the Ibanez QX527. And if you put this into neck position and turn on the power tap switch, the Ibanez has that just cuts the power a bit. It's a bit different than coil splitting. And you get a sound that's in between a humbucker and a single coil, and it was just perfect. Like a full humbucker sound was a bit too much. It was like too warm sounding, but a single coil was too thin. And this was just right for what I wanted. So here it is. Oh wait, hold on. I forgot. It's on 3 channels. So yeah, this part is just supposed to sound really pleasant. And then everything changes when we get to this part. So this, going from this section to this, it's just supposed to give you whiplash because it's so nice and calm. Yeah, even right here, I boosted the volume just a bit just to make that hit even harder, or to sound even louder. So what's going on in this section? It's mainly just the harpsichord and the bass. And what the bass is doing, it's just reinforcing some of the notes that you'll see down here, just to give it a fatter sound. So here it is with the bass. Here it is without the bass. If your system has good bass response, you probably hear that the bass is missing. Something is just missing, and it just felt right to add a little bit of extra support. So the main complexity with this section is happening right here, and there's quite a bit going on. The actual part starts about right here. And I decided to put the chord progression behind it so you can see. So when I'm writing, I know how to harmonize that it would sound in a way that would sound good. So I'll just play here. If anyone wants, you're a composer and want to see what notes that I'm using, I'll go through this in the 2 sections. Mainly so I can zoom in and so you can see the notes, and I'll pan over here later. So starting off. So there's a lot going on. So we have the main melody line along with some harmony, like right here. And then we have the bass, and this is doubling up with the bass that I showed you earlier. And then sometimes this harmony line is coming back down here. So whatever's happening in the middle, I just jump it up and down, and there's also even 4 happening right here, and here too. And if you were paying close attention, you may have noticed that this melody is actually the same one that I used earlier. That is the same as the intro. Whoa. But I'm using a different chord progression this time that sounds way spicier, because then you have chords like, hold on, where is it? I don't know, this just sounds weird, but it fits the vibe. I have the chord template right here. I wonder if this is routed to anything. What happens if I raise the volume? Oh, it doesn't really do anything. Okay, never mind. thought we could hear the chords. So that's this section, and then it moves on into the build up again. So this is, well, the build up again, except that you saw 2 times already, except the instrumentation is a little different because I'm trying to connect it to this previous section. So we have the synth. That gets reused again. Drums are also very similar. Bass is also doing another similar thing. The harpsichord is a little different. So it's... Hold on. Hold on. Let me zoom in this. And then it cuts. So I can do this build at the end. And then we also have guitars coming back. And I think these are the same things that I've used before, except these two. Yes, we have this. So these guitar parts are just like more rock-ish, metal-ish kind of guitar tone. And it sounds really sloppy. It doesn't sound good. This wasn't recorded very well. However, within the context of the track, you're not hearing those mistakes because there's like so much other stuff going on. So it was good enough for this. And we also have this lead part. Well, with the multi-voicer. Same one as the beginning, and the other parts. So I don't want to go through that again. And then that all goes into this section here. So we have this part, the reversed guitar again, and the noise again, and both at the same time. And I decide to cut out everything else. I cut out all the other tracks except for like this noise part, just so that this main section will hit even harder. Since that space, I just gave it a little bit of space. And now we're now heading on into the end, and this is the main section again. So this is, I think, is the exact same as the main section over here. And let's take a quick look. Yes, it does look the same. So I'm not even going to go through that. But then we have this variant. So this is an extension of the main section. It's using this similar synth. It's using a very similar drum pattern, similar bass pattern, except it's slightly different. And here it is. And it's mainly because the guitars are now playing something different now. This is another section that I really like. This is like my second favorite section. Here are the guitars in isolation. So this is the harmony line. Let's see what this is. So this sounds like a split coil setting. This sounds like a probably bridge pickup. Probably another bridge pickup. So all of these at the same time, layered together, sounds like this. So I added this single coil part because these two by themselves, I mean, they sound good, but this adds a little bit of extra high end to it that I like. Now, all of this is also being sent through the multi-voicer, so that's what this sounds like. Oh yeah, and then this automation brings the volume down for the next section. So let's see what else we got going up here. Yeah, I already mentioned that everything else here is similar. I think this harp might be a slightly different. No, it's like the same. And that goes into the ending. Oh wait, hold on. Before we do that, we got to talk about this demo part that I wrote. So this was the outline before I tracked everything. Okay, so that uses the old version, which I talked about earlier. And then here's the second part. So the second part was what I copied and then turned into this guitar section. All right, now moving on to the end. So this end section is similar to the beginning, except in the middle it changes right around, I think here. Yeah. So this right here is actually a reference to another track that I wrote. And that's mainly because this track was supposed to be for a game that I was working on, which is now dead. So this is a theme for a character, and well, since I canceled the game, I just had this project sitting, well, this idea sitting around, and decided to use it for this track. And since it was related to that game, I also decided to bring back one of the other motifs from that game, which is here. And I think you can hear this motif in one of my unlisted videos called Fragmentation. The chords and harmony might be a little different, but that's like This is the melody. So yeah, this is No One Sleeps This Week. We also have some, let's see what this bonus stuff is. Oh, this is an older section that I wrote. And then we also have this. Yeah, so these were older sections, and I think these were tests just to see how everything worked. Scattered and this is from Celeste, the game. I think what I did was just try to transcribe this by ear. So I did this by ear. This was an incomplete transcription, but I think I just wanted to get the vibe. I talked about, I think I talked about why. Okay, you know what? I'll just talk about it now. So Celeste was the game that pushed me into trying music composition. I mean, I was supposed to learn this anyways, but after playing the game, this is like really what got me curious about composing. And this was one of the tracks that I referenced for the original one that I wrote in like 2018, the one that I showed in the beginning. So I wanted to have that kind of vibe. So I think that's why I just brought the transcription in here. And then we have some other stuff, which I'm assuming is just other tests that I have. So yeah, this is the project file. It was, I think making this project actually went decently fast, mainly because I was reusing a lot of instruments, so I didn't have to go through that. All the testing and mixing. I just was able to bring back all of the other stuff that I had. So yeah, that's No One Sleep This Week.